Corinne Nijjer, thank you so much for joining us on the Plan Trainers podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm happy to be here. So excited.
We're excited too, and we want to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share.
Oh, so many, but I will start with that today. We've had winter and we're headed into spring here in Australia, and the sun is so shining, and I can see it in the trees outside my window right now as we're talking, and it's just so beautiful. It's really lovely.
I'm glad you're enjoying that, because right now over here it's dark at like 4 p.m. and it's getting cold. The leaves are falling. Winter's coming. One of the perks of living in Canada, right?
Embrace it.
I love
Find
it.
the positive.
Well, the positive is that the nice cold temperature is really nice and the air is fresh. So when I'm out there for a run, it's really good. There's the positive.
Oh, that's a positive. I love that winter fresh air after a summer. So nice.
It is nice, and it feels like everything's kind of getting cleaned up and the air is crisp. And it allows a lot of people to, think about how they're going to enter the next year and all of that. So there's a lot of new beginnings that start to happen. And a lot of us here on the show listening have had new beginnings, and we've all had new beginnings. How did you find a plant-based lifestyle or a vegan lifestyle to start your new beginning?
Well, it's kind of a windy, meandering story, but I found it years ago. I found the beginning of it because I wasn't vegan. I wasn't 100% plant-based, but I went, in inverted commas, plant-based because I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I learned about a mostly plant-based diet. So I was allowed to eat, with the multiple sclerosis, I was allowed to continue consuming. Well, I was allowed to eat anything I wanted and continue eating the things that were making me sick, obviously. But the research that I really connected with and resonated with me was from Dr. Roy Swank and Dr. George Jelinek. And there he had the Swank diet, and then adapted from by Dr. George Jelinek was the Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis lifestyle program, which includes diet, meditation, vitamin D, that kind of thing, omega-3. And that made sense to me. It just made sense when I got that diagnosis, and I received like a A4 document in the mail from the MS Society, I think it was, or MS Australia, with the information about the Swank diet. And I just thought, oh my gosh, at 24 years of age, it made so much sense to me that it was the things I was putting into my body and my responses to stress and all those things that had led me to become so unwell. And so that's when my journey started.
What was unwell like at that time when you were 24 years old? What was your life like?
It was pretty awful, really. I was basically sleeping my life away because I was in chronic pain with fibromyalgia. I was chronically constipated. I had candida every month for most of the month. I was exhausted, depressed in bed, and when I was diagnosed, I was just working, and I had people living with me who were paying. Their board was that they would cook for me and help with the chores and things, because I just couldn't manage the whole thing with the amount of sleep that I needed to have all the time. So I was 24. I wasn't partying. I hadn't been partying since I was in high school. Like, I just turned 16 and got glandular fever, and my health just started to decline, and it just got worse and worse. So I couldn't barely raise my arms over my head. I couldn't exercise. I just was homebound. Work and home was all over, bed and home. And then I woke up one morning and I was numb down the right-hand side of my face, and down the center of my tongue on the right-hand side. Like, my whole face perfectly halved was pins and needles. And then by the end of that morning, I was numb from my fingertips to my elbow on my right arm. And that was a bit of a slow process. Initially, I thought I'd had a stroke, but then with further testing with MRI technology, they discovered that there was multiple lesions on your brain, which is what multiple sclerosis means, is multiple scarring. So there was multiple scarring in my brain everywhere. So that's when I received the diagnosis, probably about a month later.
That must have been a really scary time waiting for the diagnosis, and nobody really wants their diagnosis, but sometimes getting it, no matter what it is some kind of relief, because at least you know what's going on and how to proceed from there. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does. I have to say that when they said, because it's about 2 weeks later, they told me it was a stroke. And a stroke was more of an easy pill to swallow for me, because I felt like, well, I've had it and I'm alive and this is as bad as it is. Now I just have to make some sensible choices moving forward. But when they said, so I was okay, but when they said MS and they're like, this is just a decline into disability and death by side, like, what's the word? It's not, MS doesn't kill you, but the things that happen to you when you have MS kill you. So you like bed sores, infections, pneumonia, all the other things kill you early. So I was just, and they said, it's just, this is what happens. You just gradually, there's no hope, there's no cure. There's medications every day for the rest of your life. You have to inject yourself, and I hated needles. And they said, the injection sites will have rashes most of the time. For most people, they get on-site rashes. They get 4 hours of flu-like symptoms every day for the rest of your life, and that's just the only hope that you have. And we can't tell you the severity or frequency of your relapses, but this is just what's going to happen for the rest of your life. And then eventually it will turn into, so I've had relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis, but eventually it'll turn into secondary progressive MS, where you don't, like with relapsing remitting, you tend to heal a bit. So you'll drop and then heal a bit, but not to the same as you were. So it's more like a zigzag decline. Whereas with the other one, it's just a decline. You don't recover. There's no recovery period. So, hearing that, I just felt the rug pulled out from under me. It was really terrifying until I received that information about the diet, and then I was like, this makes sense, and I held onto it with both hands.
So for those listening that don't know much about MS, is this the type of illness that you're born with and the symptoms only expose themselves later, or do you develop it through, I guess, diet and environmental factors? And like, how does it come about, or is it genetic? Or tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, it's tricky because different people have different ways of explaining it. So you'll get a different answer from many people and online. So basically they say it's an autoimmune disease, and that it's not necessarily, there's not a gene specifically that's doing it, like that I have and I pass down to my children, but because I have it and I eat this way, I live in this climate, it tends to happen more often to people who live further away from the equator in colder climates, who would eat diets more high in saturated fat, more heavy meat, dairy, egg rich, whereas when you live closer to the equator, you eat more fruits, vegetables, raw food, you eat more salads, you eat more omega-3 from fish or flax or walnuts or wherever you get your omega-3 from. So it has lots of factors, but it's basically your immune system is attacking the myelin sheath that protects your nerves in your spinal cord and in your brain. So the fatty tissue around your nerves, it's like a little jackhammer that's just jackhammering away at it, thinking that it's bad. And then if you punch someone in the arm just gently, you might never notice a bruise. But if you just keep punching, eventually you're going to bruise, and then eventually you're going to get through to the tissue underneath. And so that's basically what the MS is doing. Once it gets through to the nerve, for me, I lost the feeling in my face once it got through to that nerve and my arm. And then later down the track, it took out everything from below my belly button down to my toes. So I lost all the sensation and feeling from below the waist.
So they were not able to give you pharmaceuticals to kind of reverse some of the symptoms for a temporary amount of time?
They give you intravenous steroids when you first have your relapse, which I did find helped, I would say. I don't know, because I also went straight to with that last relapse. So for 4 years, my neurologist was saying there's no science to diet. Don't bother with diet. You may as well eat what you want. You already got this. And my family was saying, oh my gosh, you're already sick. Why would you want to get rid of cake and chocolate and cheese and omelets and all those things? You're already sick. Just eat whatever you want. And of course I wanted to eat whatever I wanted. So I was like, okay. But every time throughout that 4 years when I would go on this diet, my lesions would reduce. I would have more energy. I would feel better. But then they would say there's no science to diet, because you have to go to your neurologist every 6 months pretty much I was going every 6 months. And every 6 months he would just take all the hope away. I'd go in, I'd be like, yay. He'd just go, there's nothing. You're screwed. You're just going to slowly decline.
So if they keep telling you that you're going to slowly decline and what you're doing is a waste of your time, how did you find the strength or the power within yourself to say, I'm not listening to you, I'm going to go with this change of diet because I think it's the right thing to do? Or is that not what you thought?
Well, I believed it in my heart, but when someone who's a specialist, who's the expert, who's the best in the country is saying, look, it doesn't matter what you believe in your heart, girl, you know, like this is I know better than you, and I know the science, and there's no science to diet, and this is just what happens to all my patients. They decline. So it was really tricky, and because my family would just like eat whatever you want because they just wanted me to eat whatever I wanted, it was tricky, but I was a few things. Obviously, I had during that time I met my husband, and he was super supportive and really aware about diet and lifestyle changes being beneficial. So he was open-minded to that and really supportive. And I went to Dr. Jelinek. They have a MS retreat here in the Yarra Valley near my house. It goes for 5 days. I went to one of those at the Gawler Foundation, which is an amazing cancer facility here in the Yarra Valley. And that was helpful as well to get some more community around me that said this works and we've all had success with it, or we're all trying it, rather than just feeling like I was all alone. And then when I went numb in 2008, when I couldn't feel my legs, I just thought, look, I'm listening to him, and look at me decline. Like I'm just declining and declining and declining, and I have nothing to lose anymore. I'm just going to, him saying that I'm a sick person and that I'm sick and it's just going to get worse and worse isn't good for my identity. Like if placebo works, as we know that it does, him telling me I'm a sick person every 6 months when I walk in there and telling me there's no hope for me, that's a poison. You know what I mean? Like that's a poison to my mental health, and my physical health is going to respond with sickness if I just keep getting fed. The word poison seems harsh, but when someone's telling that their words that you're good at death and you're going to die, and every 6 months you pay him to tell you it again, it was just horrible. I just thought, why? I'm not going to you if you're going to tell me that. I'm just going to try this because I just know that I was perfect and healthy, born perfect and healthy, and then at 24 my body said, I'm broken. Why did it? I wasn't born with it. I just noticed became an obese kid, an obese teenager, then the constipation started, the sickness, there was all these signposts saying I was leading towards this, and it happened, and now it was my job to move the boat in the opposite direction and find health for the first time in my life.
Well, we're glad that you did, and without getting more into it, I just wanted to say that I normally hear doctors say, I don't believe it, but if it's working for you, keep doing it. That is a way of saying, I'll support you in it, even though I don't see the science behind it. So wishing he would have said that. But so you're saying that you were born a healthy child. So what are some of the risk factors? And is there anybody else in your family that has MS?
No, there's no one else in my family. My brother died of a different disease, a genetic disease. He died from muscular dystrophy, which is also probably part of why I was so determined to be well. Well, it's a big part of why I was so determined to be well, because I watched him suffer and decline, like very, not the same because it's much more rapid than most people's multiple sclerosis decline. But he was born with it. He learned to walk, and then he's had a falling, and then in a wheelchair, and then his muscles just waste away with that disease, and your heart's a muscle and your lungs. So he couldn't breathe, and he died. And so he wanted to live, and I was just like, I can't do this again in my family. I can't have that happen again and watch my parents go through that again, and I can't be the next 30 years of my parents' life caring for me and watching me suffer and die slowly. So that was a big, big motivating factor. I'm sorry I could talk about it so frankly because it's I just have lived it for so long. I don't mean to say it like it wasn't the most hard, horrible time of my life, because it definitely was the most hard, horrible time of my life. And he died the year after I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So it was just, the 20s were just a write-off as far as just grief and loss and illness for me.
Thank you for sharing. And we've talking about Adam's story so many times. I know that sometimes the feelings are there, but sometimes you just say what you need to say to get it out, to share the message, and it doesn't always sound as it. So we understand. We understand. Yeah.
From the heart. And I feel like you're just spitting it out really blunt.
Yeah.
Like there's no emotions.
There is. We know. Yeah.
They're there. I guess if you open that up all the time, you just walk around in tears all the time.
But it's a defining moment in your life, just like it was in mine. And everyone's defining moment changes not only who you are, but the people around you. And when you share your story and you share the most impactful moments of your life and you become vulnerable to them, that's when you start to make an impact on those people around you. And there's people listening now that this is going to have an impact on in one way or another, because MS is very prevalent. A lot of people know people that have it or have been touched by it. And so by you sharing your story, it's really going to make a difference. And that's why we do these shows, to get people's stories out there so that we can help as many people as possible find a healthy path. So obviously, thank you for sharing that. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it's the defining moment that really draws people in and allows people to create change in their lives.
Absolutely.
What did you do to help your family get on board and be supportive and not continue to put the cake and the eggs and all of that in your face?
Maybe they did. Or
did they continue to?
They were, once I went numb from the waist down, and I was so sick and we were all so terrified. I couldn't feel myself go to the bathroom. I was, at my highest weight, I was in the 100 kilogram, over 100 kilograms. I was really, really sick. I was trying to study, and I'd gone back to study social work, hoping that I could get a career that I could do if I was in a wheelchair. So and that was an area that I was passionate about. But, I was planning for a future of sickness and disease. And so they were seeing me trying to study around this, concrete feeling legs. It felt like they were just frozen in ice and huge. And I was so sick. So then when I said, look, I'm done, I'm eating a whole food. So I went whole food plant-based, which was with the inclusion of seafood then and egg white. So that was the MS version. And so since that time, I went whole food. I went vegan after the birth of my son. So I've been vegan for the last almost 8 years, but whole food predominant since 2008. When that relapse happened, I went straight to that, and I never went back to my neurologist. Now, I'm not recommending that to everyone, but for me, the thing is, my neurologist was my brother's neurologist, which made it harder because he went to that office once a year to be told he was going to just die slowly. So then when I had to go back to the same waiting room that I'd sat in with him growing up, it was too much for me to bear being in that same waiting room. So, I don't want people to think that I'm saying don't see a doctor, because please see everyone who makes you feel supported and nourished and strong. And whoever that is, see that person. I don't want people to think that I'm telling them to be negligent with their medical care. It's just my personal story. It was agony going there, and every time I went, I felt hopeless and like my life was over. So I've lost my train of thought because I got a bit emotional thinking about this.
It's okay. And so 11 years later, where are you at now with regards to the MS?
So 11 years later, so almost not very long after I changed, the weight started to come off. So I've lost over 50 pounds and kept it off. I now, I went from, my friends, even to this day, because they knew me for the 30 years of my life. The first 30 years of my life where I would say, I'm never running unless I'm being chased by an axe-wielding murderer. And now now they still laugh when I say, I'm on a run. I'm on a run every single morning because I'm addicted and I can't not go on my run. I love exercising. I run the 5K because it's just around the kids. That's as much as I can go for. But I'd like to do longer runs, but I just need the babies to be a bit bigger so I can be away for longer without my husband being like, TikTok.
It'll come.
Running, I've lost weight. I've had no relapses since 2008 or symptoms of MS. I've got no pain from fibromyalgia. I'm not constipated. I don't have candida. I feel amazing, honestly. It's the best decision of my whole life.
We're so happy for you. And how long did it take once you went whole food plant-based to get the feeling in your legs back again and get to walking again?
So I could walk just very slowly, very awkwardly. And sometimes I'd notice that my foot had turned completely sideways and I was just treading on the sides of my feet. And I wouldn't know because they were just so numb. But that was about quite quick. Really, it was only 2-3 months before I remember the first patch of my butt that came back, and I was like, oh, I can feel a patch of my butt, which was amazing. It seems ridiculous and hilarious, but it was just the first thing I noticed was just a part of my butt, my cheek came back, and I was like, oh my God, I can feel it like normal. It was a miracle. It was amazing.
So at that point, were you taking any medication, or were you off meds and only food?
I've never taken the medication because I hate needles, and the only thing I've done was the intravenous steroids. I did that, a round of intravenous steroids once when my legs went numb. I went to the hospital, and it's 3 days of intravenous steroids that they give you. So that's all I've had.
Wow.
So now, what is it like playing with your children and going for the run and helping other people to get their lives back? What does that feel like for you?
Well, it feels incredible especially because I have sons, and I never thought that I'd be able to have sons because of my brother's history with muscular dystrophy. So I have sons, and I always wanted sons because I was a tomboy, and I never thought, what am I going to do with daughters? I always wanted sons, and so getting to be healthy with them, is just it's undescribable, honestly, because I just never thought that I would be healthy. I literally always thought I'd be a sick person because I was so sick for so long. So being healthy with them and playing with them, and now sometimes I say to me, Mum, why are you always laying in the sunshine? And I say, well, because you are exhausting, but I feel so good, and I run and I exercise and I do all these things. When you're playing, I just want to just bask in it as well as play with you. It's just nice. It's just so nice.
Are the children whole food plant-based as well?
Yeah, both kids, because MS, I missed you answering this before, but MS it happens in the same family, and it's often worse for boys than it is for girls. So it happens in the same family because we eat the same, we respond to stress the same, we get the same amount of omega-3s, we have the same amount of sunshine, all those kinds of things, and mostly we eat the same. About 80% of it is diet, as we know, most of us know, and so because I have 2 sons, I really wanted them to protect them and learn how to enjoy a whole food plant-based diet young, and learn the impact food has on health all the time. So we talk about that every day, all the time, because it's just something that I want them to know. And if they make the choices later on to eat whatever they want to choose. I don't think that they will, because they're very knowledgeable and compassionate, and they understand why we eat this way and why it's so good for us. But if they did, then I could say, look, I did my best. I did my best. Right. And if you get sick now, it's up to you.
Do they know about your medical history?
Yeah, they do. They do. They don't quite. Like Theo, the youngest one, you know, he doesn't. He'll just get bits and pieces as he goes. But the eldest one knows more about it than, definitely much more about it.
So if there's a parent listening who has suffered illness in the past and is either getting relief or has relief because and has their life back because of a whole food plant-based diet, what do you recommend to them in terms of sharing with their children? Of course, every child's different, but at what age and how to talk to your children about food and what your life was like before without putting a fear into them and making sure that it stays educational?
Good question.
Of course, there's no right answer, but what's your take on it?
Well, I started out mostly talking about that with them, talking about how we eat this way. When we're talking about why we eat differently to other families, I just say, well, Mummy was very, very sick, and eating this way has made me really, really, really healthy. So I can play with you and be with you and have fun with you, and I want that for you guys too. And I also they love ninja superheroes. So it depends what you kid, but my kids specifically like ninja superheroes, good guys, you know, that kind of thing. And so when I talk about foods, I say that there's good guys and bad guys living inside our body, you know, in our microbiome, but I don't say microbiome. They live inside us, and when we eat these foods, the bad guys win. We don't want those bad guys to win. We want the good guys to win. So I'll just say, you know, think about the good guys. When we eat broccoli and vegetables and fruit and whole plants, then the good guys get super big muscles and they can fight and win, and the bad guys get sick and they go away. That's basically what I say. But now I say weak food and strong food a bit, because I liked Andrew Taylor and his wife say weak food and strong food, and I think that's kind of simple as well, apart from when we're walking around and my son starts saying, that's weak food, when people are eating that, and I'm just like, shh, embarrassing me.
Out of the mouths of babes.
That's great. It's always great to relate those kind of things to younger kids, because when you make it exciting or interesting and something that they could understand, it makes it that much easier for them to believe in and want to follow along and share with. I bet they even talk to their friends about good food and strong food and weak food, and they share that for sure.
They definitely do. Sometimes it's embarrassing, but they definitely do. And their friends talk about food a lot because of that, I think, because of him talking about it at school, talking about what he eats and why he eats it. But I still think it is difficult, because, you know, his friends will be eating hot dogs. Yep. And my son was the most embarrassing thing, because I told him what hot dogs are, and he told all of his friends, like, loudly what hot dogs were made of at school.
Listen, it's the truth. What can you do?
He's not going to get expelled for that, because it's the truth. So hopefully one child at least went home and said, Mom, I'm not eating that anymore.
I know, but I said, mate, you want to have friends at school? You can't tell them that their lunch is made of that.
Oh my gosh, we just recently allowed our son the privilege of some iMessaging with some of his friends. And they'll message him. They know broccoli's his favorite food. And they'll message him like messages about broccoli and all that. And they're like all supportive. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to think my kid's like the biggest nerd because he loves broccoli. But like they all support it, and they like send him like different broccoli emojis and GIFs and all of that stuff. So it ends up working out. It definitely does.
He's fine. Like, he's got friends, thank goodness, because I was a bit nervous, because when I was a little kid, I was from a country town. I was white bread, cheese, you know, Vegemite, whatever. I don't know Vegemite stuff.
Yeah, I know what it is.
I don't know how you eat that stuff.
Is that vegan?
Black, disgusting.
Is it plant-based?
Yeah, it's gross.
But gross. Don't eat it. Look, I'm on your side, because I think it's disgusting now, because I just think now it's black gunk. Why are we feeding that to families, but I loved it as a kid. So, I mean, when I saw other kids eating like Iggy's lunchbox, like my son's lunchbox, I was thinking, oh my gosh, they got rye bread? Who eats brown bread? Or they've got vegetables and fruit? Oh my God. So anyway, now my son is that kid.
Well, anybody listening that hasn't tried Vegemite, don't do it. And I know by us just telling you not to do it, now you're going to run out to the store and try it, because every time you tell people not to do it.
Do they sell it over here on this part of the world?
You could find it, but don't do it.
Anyway, well, I mean, you could try it.
Love it.
Some people love it, which is crazy to me.
But I think it's because
yeah,
and you start eating it from a young age, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of get used to it. So that's clearly not our favorite food. What are some of your favorite foods and meals that you either recommend to your clients to make for ease or like making at home?
Well, unlike your son, broccoli is like, I've been on a water fast. It turned into a juice fast for 7 days. This is my first day on fruit. And I am so excited for broccoli. I cannot wait for broccoli. Awesome. So I'm looking forward to making a trough of broccoli tomorrow. But generally, I really love Buddha bowls all the time. That's what I love, because I just love putting anything that's in the fridge and just cooking it up, all different bits and pieces and different flavors, and having, a grain and maybe some tahini and some broccoli and roast pumpkin and chickpeas that are spiced, and just throwing it into a bowl and eating that with some hummus. That's probably my all-time favorite, would be a Buddha bowl, because it just means that whatever you've got in the house, you can just throw together and make something. Some big screens. I love that.
Yeah, you're not really cooking, right? Yeah. You're just kind of preparing a bunch of things. That's my fave. And then all the leftovers make a second night.
Yeah.
Oh, no! That's my fave. So that, and probably I like that, and like just a roast sweet potato with whatever. It could be nothing, or it could be hummus and a big salad. Roasted potato is my favorite, and chips obviously in the oven. I like them.
And people say
mean French fries from here.
Yeah, and people say eating this way is hard, right? It really doesn't have to be difficult. It's super simple when you want it to be.
And I found, even since we've gotten an air fryer, it's even simpler.
Yeah.
I don't know if if it's a big thing down there as well.
I don't have one. It is getting a big thing here, and I want one so bad. Is it amazing? Out of 10?
It's a game changer. We literally inherited one. Literally. But it's just like to just cut up the cauliflower and stick it in there, or
anything.
The potatoes, the cauliflower.
Is the cauliflower amazing and crisp in there?
Yeah.
Yes. I even did zucchini flowers in there to make them like kale chips. Yeah. It was really good.
Really good.
I don't recommend kale chips because they get all broken up and then they just like get into small little pieces and fly all over. So I'd say still do the oven for those kind of things. But even like
potatoes in there are fantastic.
Oh, what did I do? Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, Brussels sprouts with garlic on it.
We did like a potato nacho night where we had like thin potatoes sliced into circles, and then we had Brussels sprouts. She hasn't
eaten in a week.
Oh, sorry. We had just
I haven't eaten food in a week.
Brussels
it's heavenly.
Sprouts and salsa and stuff. It was anyway. I'm sorry. So I did a water fast 2 weeks ago, so I totally know where you're at. Instagram was not my friend during the water fast.
Tough. Instagram was my worst. I was just like, stop! Why do I have all these pages of food? Oh my God.
Like, Adam, you're in charge of responding to comments this week.
Wow.
I was going to ask you just quickly, and just my own question with your air fryer is, I've got the whole screen of you on my laptop right now, but I know you have a heap of delicious ebooks. Do you have an air fryer ebook?
We don't.
Oh no! Now I have more work to do.
I'm just thinking.
It's just so simple. Like, you just throw things in the air fryer and you're done.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it might happen. It might happen, and we might have to put your name on there as a credit.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but I would never have thought Brussels sprouts, for instance.
Right.
And I probably would have just been stuck on potatoes, thinking this is just a potato machine.
A potato machine.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't done an Instant Pot one either, but we do we're all about really, really simple food. So our easy recipes for busy parents is all the same ingredients over and over again, made into different ways to make life easy, to make it fast. So that would totally that would totally work with our lifestyle to do that.
It could be done.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
It's what the people want.
If Corinne says it, we'll do it. Yeah. Yeah, good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, if somebody knows somebody with MS or somebody listening has MS, what are some of the first actionable tips that people should take to start to turn their life around and get to where you are?
I think the first thing that I would suggest is, well, for me, I love research, because that helps me feel like, okay, it's not just some random person I've listened to on a podcast. There's actual evidence supporting it. And so there's so many great books, but I would still, even though I'm an ethical vegan now, I would still begin with the Swank research and the Dr. Roy Swank research and the Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis book and website, because they talk about the saturated fats and why they're so detrimental, and the study that they've done that Roy Swank did, which went for 30 years, following people who were on a predominantly plant-based, low-fat, mostly vegan, just with some egg whites and seafood diets, and how they pressed pause on their MS. Every single person who stayed on the diet and committed to the diet pressed pause or had some level of recovery. I don't have any symptoms of my disease anymore, and I feel amazing. And so I don't have any, some people say they press pause, but for me it wasn't just a pause. I'm better than I was back then. So I think that research is a big eye-opener to say, oh my God, all these people were followed for so long. Dr. Jelinek has multiple sclerosis himself. He has pressed pause and been still working as a doctor for so many years with multiple sclerosis and living really well. So that for me is great. And then you can find Dr. Corbel Esselstyn, you can find Dr. Colin Campbell, Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. McDougall, all have research and have talked about multiple sclerosis before. So I would recommend doing the research as my first tip, so that you feel, there is science and evidence behind this way of eating. And then community. So I would, even if your community is podcasts, follow the Plant Trainers podcast, follow the Exam Room podcast, follow Rich Roll podcast, that whatever resonates with Dr. Laurie Marbus.
Your
There's so many. I didn't want to go straight there. My podcast. But I mean, there's so many great ones out there now that are interviewing people who are thriving on a whole food plant-based diet. And that's helpful, but there's also Facebook groups. We have Whole Food Plant-Based Aussies in Australia, which is a great community. Then there's Forks Over Knives official community and McDougall Friends, and there's so many great communities online. Our Plant Proof is a great podcast. There's so many great podcasts and communities online if you have no friends, because most of us don't know many plant-based people in our circle right now. So find them online first, and then you'll find that you'll go to potlucks or things in your area, or create a potluck yourself to get community. I think that getting community anywhere you can, physical or online, is such a game changer.
Yeah.
And the third final one would be just start with the first meal. Just start with the first meal. Take that first step and try and find things that you're going to like anyway that just happen to be whole food plant-based. Like if you like potatoes, eat all the potatoes. And that's just take one step at a time.
Even the white ones.
Yeah.
Even the white ones.
Yeah, I think those are really great tips for people to take away. And I think building community is super important for all of us all the time. And look how easy it is. We're talking to you from on the other side of the world right now. The internet has really shrunk the world and brought everyone together. So it's so much easier to find people to connect with? And speaking of that, for people that want to connect with you, where would be the best place for them to find you?
Well, definitely, probably Facebook would be the easiest place. My Facebook page, which is Corinne Nijjer, which is my name, and I'm sure that it will be in the show notes.
For sure.
Corinne, I'm on Instagram and Corinne Nijjer. I'm on Twitter, I'm not very big on Twitter, but it's there. It's an account.
It's there.
I'm on YouTube as Corinne Nijjer. There's only the first 28 episodes of my podcast are up, but there's 113 available on Spotify and all those places, so you can listen to the podcast there. And there's my website, which is also called Corinne Nijjer. So it's all in the show notes and it's all there for you to look at.
Perfect. And we will link to those in the show notes. And we hope that people go back to the introduction and listen to a little bit more about you so that they know exactly where to find you and why they want to. We want to thank you so much for being
so open.
I was going to say, so open and honest with your story today. And really, you're such an inspiration and a perfect example of how the foods that we choose to put into our mouths can hurt us or heal us. And we're so happy that you're healed and that you're got all this beautiful time with your family and running around and doing everything. And you're a beautiful soul. And thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you, for having me. It was an absolute pleasure being on your show.
Thank you.
Awesome.